I spent the Sunday afternoon in my garage with my grandson, Connor. He's 13 now, old enough to understand the difference between a socket wrench and a torque wrench, old enough to appreciate why we measure twice and tighten once. The Alberta sun filtered through the high windows, catching the dust motes floating above the workbench, where we'd spread out the carburetor components from a 1968 Plymouth Barracuda I was rebuilding for a client in Red Deer. Connor held the float bowl carefully, exactly as I'd shown him, while I cleaned the jets with carburetor cleaner and compressed air. My father taught me to rebuild carburetors when I was Connor's age. That was 1974 in this same garage, though the neighborhood around it has changed beyond recognition. Back then, this was the edge of Calgary. Now it's surrounded by subdivisions and strip malls. "Grandpa," Connor said, squinting at the tiny brass jet in his palm, "why do people even want old cars? Wouldn't it be easier to just buy new?" I smiled. 43 years as an automotive engineer at Ford Canada, and my grandson was asking the question that separated people who understood cars from people who just drove them. "This Barracuda," I said, pointing to the vehicle on the lift, "was built in 1968. That's 57 years ago. When it rolled off the assembly line in Detroit, it had 383 cubic inches of pure American muscle. No computers, no sensors, just metal, fuel, air, and spark. You could hear it coming from 3 blocks away." "But Grandpa, my dad's Tesla." "Your dad's Tesla is a fine vehicle," I interrupted gently. "Fast, efficient, quiet. But in 50 years, do you think anyone will be rebuilding Teslas in their garage, teaching their grandson how it works?" I held up the carburetor body. "This is something you can understand completely. Every part has a purpose you can see and touch. That's why people want old cars, Connor. They're not just transportation. They're legacy." Connor nodded slowly. He was a good kid. His father, my daughter Jennifer's husband, worked in tech. Nice enough fellow. But he looked at my garage full of tools and parts, the way some people look at a museum, interesting history, but irrelevant to modern life. Jennifer understood, though. She'd spent hours in this garage as a teenager, helping me restore the 1969 Dodge Charger RT that was currently parked under its car cover in the climate-controlled bay at the back. The Charger. My father bought it new in 1969, the year I was born. He drove it until 1981, when he parked it in this garage, with a blown transmission and a promise to himself that he'd fix it someday. He died in 1987 without ever getting to it. I spent 8 years restoring that car. Every panel, every piece of chrome, every wire in the harness. 440 cubic inch V8, 4-speed manual, Hemi orange paint, exactly matching the original. It wasn't just a car. It was my father's dream that I'd completed for him. "Can we work on the Charger next?" Connor asked. "Maybe next summer," I said. "That car doesn't need work. It needs respect. When you're ready, I'll teach you to drive a manual transmission in that car, same way my father would have taught me if he'd lived long enough." We finished reassembling the carburetor as the afternoon light began to fade. Connor's mother texted that she'd pick him up in 20 minutes. I walked him through the final torque specifications, watched him carefully tighten each screw to exact spec, and felt that same satisfaction my father must have felt watching me learn. After Connor left, I should have gone inside. Linda had texted earlier that she was making dinner, probably something healthy involving quinoa and kale. She was good like that, trying to keep me eating well at 62. We'd been together for 4 years now, since we met at a classic car show where I was displaying the Charger and she was admiring a 1957 Thunderbird. She'd seemed to understand my passion then. But her son, Marcus, that was complicated. Marcus was 29, technically a professional automotive content creator with a YouTube channel and Instagram following. He called himself Auto Marcus online and made videos about supercar culture and hypebeast builds. He'd moved into Linda's condo 2 years ago after his roommate's situation fell apart, and I'd bitten my tongue about it more times than I could count. The kid had never held a wrench in his life, but he'd filmed himself sitting in other people's supercars at dealerships and meets, accumulating 340,000 followers who seemed to think he actually owned these vehicles. Linda insisted he was building a business. I insisted he was building a fantasy. But I kept quiet because I loved Linda and she loved her son, and that's what you do in relationships. You accept the package. I locked up the garage and headed toward the house. That's when I noticed the climate-controlled bay door was open about 6 inches. I always kept it closed. Always. The environmental controls couldn't function properly otherwise, and the charger deserved better than temperature fluctuations. My chest tightened as I walked over and hit the button to raise the door fully. The bay was empty. The car cover lay crumpled on the floor. The charger was gone. I stood there for a moment, my mind trying to process what I was seeing. Or not seeing. The concrete floor showed fresh tire tracks leading out to the driveway. I checked my phone. No messages. No missed calls. No explanation. I called Linda. She answered on the second ring. Hey babe, dinner's almost ready. Are you coming in? Linda, where's the charger? A pause. What do you mean? I mean the garage bay is empty. The car is gone. Did you move it? Of course not. I don't even know how to drive it. Why would it be gone? Where's Marcus? Another pause. Longer this time. He went out this afternoon. Said he had a content shoot somewhere. Richard, you don't think... I think I need to talk to your son immediately. I hung up and dialed Marcus. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "Where is my car?" No response. I walked around the garage, checking everything. The key box mounted inside the door was open, the spare key to the charger missing. Marcus had been in the garage last week, helping Linda fetch some storage boxes from the upper shelves. He must have seen where I kept the spare. Linda came out to the garage, wrapped in a cardigan against the October chill. Richard, I'm sure there's an explanation. Marcus knows how much that car means to you. He wouldn't just take it. He already did. Maybe he just wanted to film it. For content. You know how his channel works. He probably thought he'd have it back before you noticed. I looked at her. That car is worth over $180,000. It's not a prop. It's not content. It took me 8 years to restore. My father bought it new. I know, honey. I know. But let's not jump to conclusions. Let me try calling him. She did. He didn't answer for her either. We went inside. Linda heated up dinner, some kind of Buddha bowl situation that I barely tasted. Every few minutes, I checked my phone. Nothing. I tried calling Marcus 3 more times. Voicemail. At 8 p.m., my phone finally rang. Unknown number, Mr. Richard Thornton? Speaking. This is Constable Davies with Calgary Police Service. I'm calling about a vehicle registered to you. A 1969 Dodge Charger? The bottom dropped out of my stomach. Yes. What happened? The vehicle was involved in an incident on Highway 2 near Airdrie approximately 2 hours ago. Are you aware that someone else was operating your vehicle? No. It was taken from my garage without my permission. What kind of incident? A racing incident, sir. The driver and another vehicle were observed racing at excessive speeds. The Charger left the roadway and struck a barrier. The driver fled the scene, but we have him in custody now. I closed my eyes. Is he hurt? Minor injuries. He's been transported to Foothills Hospital as a precaution, but I need to inform you that the vehicle sustained significant damage. It's been towed to an impound lot. You'll need to arrange for its release. Who was driving? A pause while he checked his notes. Marcus William Bennett, 29 years old, Calgary address. Is he known to you? He's my girlfriend's son. Did you give him permission to operate the vehicle? Absolutely not. In that case, Mr. Thornton, you may want to file a theft report. I'll transfer you to someone who can help with that. I spent the next hour on the phone with police, giving statements, confirming that Marcus had no authorization to take the vehicle, providing documentation of ownership and registration. Linda sat across from me at the kitchen table, crying quietly. It was an accident, she kept saying. He made a mistake. He stole my car, I said, keeping my voice level. 43 years in engineering taught you to control your emotions, to focus on facts and solutions. He took it without permission, raced it illegally, crashed it, and fled the scene. Those aren't mistakes. Those are choices. He's my son. I'm aware. At 10 p.m., Marcus finally called Linda's phone. I could hear him from across the table, his voice high and panicked. Mom, I messed up. I need your help. The cops are saying I have to stay overnight for observation, but I need you to handle something for me before Richard finds out. Linda glanced at me. Richard's right here, Marcus. He knows. Silence on the other end. You want to explain to me what happened? I asked. Look, man, I was just trying to get some content. There was this McLaren at the meet in Airdrie, and the owner said he'd race me for a video. I thought the Charger would be perfect. Classic muscle versus modern supercar. The algorithm loves that stuff. You thought my car would be perfect for creating content. I was going to have it back in a few hours. You were with Connor. I figured you'd never know, until you crashed it. It's not that bad. I mean, the front end is messed up, and there's some frame damage, but insurance will cover it, right? I felt something cold settle in my chest. What insurance, Marcus? Your insurance. You have coverage on it, don't you? I have collector car insurance, with a policy that specifically excludes unauthorized drivers, and coverage that requires the vehicle to be garaged when not in use, and a clause that voids the entire policy if the car is used for racing. Oh, I repeated. My insurance won't pay a penny for this, and even if it did, your little racing stunt was illegal. The adjuster would deny the claim the moment they read the police report. Well, that's not my problem, is it? It's your car. Linda put her hand on my arm. A warning. Stay calm. Marcus, I said quietly, you stole a vehicle worth $180,000. You damaged it, possibly beyond repair. You committed multiple criminal offenses. And you think this isn't your problem? I didn't steal it. I borrowed it. We're practically family. We're not family. I'm dating your mother. That doesn't give you the right to take my property. Jesus, dude, you sound like such a boomer right now. It's just a car. You can fix it. You're a car guy. That's what you do. I heard myself laugh, but there was no humor in it, just a car. That car was my father's. I spent 8 years restoring every inch of it. It had original date-coded engine components, period-correct interior, numbers-matching drivetrain, and you turned it into a pile of damaged metal because you wanted algorithm engagement. Mom, tell him to chill. Linda was crying harder now. Marcus, honey, you need to take this seriously. Richard has every right to be upset. I'll pay for the repairs, okay? I'll use my channel revenue. Your channel, I said, generates approximately $3,000 per month according to what you told Linda last Christmas. The front-end damage alone will cost $30,000 minimum. Frame damage? Another $60,000 to $80,000 if it's even repairable. We're talking about a total loss situation here. Silence. Marcus, where are you calling from? The hospital. They're keeping me overnight. Observation for concussion protocol. I'll be there in the morning. We need to talk in person. I don't want to talk to you. That's unfortunate, because you're going to. 8 a.m. Don't leave before I get there. I hung up. Linda wiped her eyes. Richard, please. I know you're angry, but he's terrified. He made a stupid mistake. Stop calling it a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to torque a bolt properly. A mistake is ordering the wrong spark plugs. This was deliberate. He deliberately took my keys. Deliberately took my car. Deliberately raced it. Deliberately left the scene of an accident. These are criminal acts. What are you going to do? I'm going to the impound lot in the morning to assess the damage. Then I'm going to the hospital to hear what Marcus has to say. Then I'm going to decide whether to press charges. Richard, you can't press charges against my son. I looked at her. This woman I thought I might spend the rest of my life with. This woman who was asking me to let her 29-year-old son get away with destroying the most important physical connection I had to my father. Linda, he stole from me. He committed fraud. He destroyed property worth more than most people's houses. And he did it for content, for views, for his social media presence. At what point does he face consequences? He's my son. He's all I have. You have me. I can't choose between you. I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking you to acknowledge reality. Marcus broke the law. What happens next depends on how he handles this. If he takes responsibility, shows genuine remorse, and commits to making restitution, then maybe we can work something out. But if he continues to minimize this, to act like I'm overreacting, then I have to protect myself. She stood up. I'm going to the hospital. To be with my son. Linda. I need to think, Richard. I need time. She grabbed her purse and left. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after, staring at the photos on the wall. There was one of me and my father standing next to the Charger in 1978, both of us grinning, him with his arm around my 9-year-old shoulders. There was one of me and Jennifer working on the engine during the restoration, her hands covered in grease, looking so proud. And there was one from 3 years ago, me at a car show with the completed Charger, holding a Best in Show trophy. All of that, gone. Because a 29-year-old kid wanted content. I barely slept that night. At 6 a.m., I was already dressed and heading to the impound lot. The attendant led me to the back corner where they'd put the Charger. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. The entire front clip was destroyed. Hood crumpled like aluminum foil. Fenders torn off. The front valance that I'd searched for 2 years to find, an original 1,969 part that cost me $3,000, was hanging by a single bolt. The grille, the headlight bezels, the bumper all destroyed. But that wasn't the worst part. I got underneath with a flashlight. The frame rail on the driver's side was bent. Not just dinged, bent. At the exact point where the front suspension mounted, the frame had buckled inward by almost 3 inches. I'd been an automotive engineer for 43 years. I'd worked on crash test analysis. I'd reviewed structural damage assessments. I knew exactly what I was looking at. Total loss. Even if I spent $100,000 on repairs, the car would never be the same. The frame damage meant it would never drive straight, never handle correctly, never be safe at highway speeds. And even if I somehow straightened the frame, every car collector and insurance company in the country would consider it a salvage vehicle. The value would drop by 70%. My father's car. 8 years of my life. Gone. I took photos. Hundreds of them. Every angle, every damaged component, every bent piece of metal. Then I called my insurance company and reported it as a theft and total loss. They scheduled an adjuster to come out the next day. Then I drove to Foothills Hospital. Marcus was in a semi-private room, watching something on his phone. He had a bandage on his forehead and a brace on his left wrist. He looked up when I walked in, and his expression shifted from bored to defensive. Before you start yelling, I'm not going to yell, I said quietly. I pulled up a chair and sat down. I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. My mom's getting me a lawyer. Good. You'll need one. The police have charged you with dangerous driving, racing, leaving the scene of an accident, and unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Those are criminal charges, Marcus. Not traffic violations. Criminal. His face paled a bit. The car is a total loss, I continued. Frame damage. Can't be repaired. Insurance won't cover it because you were an unauthorized driver engaging in illegal activity. Current market value for a numbers-matching 1,969 Dodge Charger RT in concours condition is approximately $180,000. That's what you destroyed. I don't care what you meant. I care about what you did. You stole my car. You destroyed it. And now you're going to face the consequences. What do you want from me? His voice cracked slightly. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You've spent 29 years being enabled by your mother, being told that your content creation is a real career, being allowed to avoid responsibility. That ends now. Linda appeared in the doorway. Richard, stop. You're bullying him. I'm telling him the truth. Something you've apparently never done. He's injured. He's scared. Can't you have a little compassion? I turned to face her. Linda, I have spent 4 years watching you make excuses for a grown man who refuses to take responsibility for his own life. I've watched you pay his rent when his channel revenue wasn't enough. I've watched you loan him money that he never repaid. I've watched you defend his lifestyle while he produces nothing of value except views and likes. His channel is his business. His channel is a hobby that generates beer money. A real business has a plan has insurance, has taxes, has sustainable revenue. Marcus has a ring light and a camera and a sense of entitlement that you've fostered since he was a child. Marcus sat up in the bed. You don't know anything about content creation. It's a real industry. I'm building a brand. You're building a fantasy, I said. And the moment reality intrudes like a car crash, like legal consequences, like actual financial responsibility, you collapse. Because you've never had to face real stakes before. I said I'd pay for the repairs. With what money? Your channel makes $3,000 a month. The damage is $180,000. At your current rate, paying for this would take you 5 years, assuming you dedicated 100% of your income and had zero living expenses. Which you can't do, because you don't actually support yourself. Your mother does. Linda's face was red. Richard, that's enough. No, it's not enough. Marcus, I'm giving you a choice. You can take responsibility. That means pleading guilty to the charges, working out a payment plan for restitution, getting a real job to supplement your channel income, and showing genuine remorse for what you've done. If you do that, I'll work with you. We'll set up a structured payment plan. It'll take years, but it's possible. Or I pursue this to the fullest extent of the law. Criminal charges, civil lawsuit for damages, garnishment of any income you do have. Your mother can hire you the best lawyer in Calgary, but the evidence is overwhelming. The police report, the witness statements, the photos, your own social media posts about wanting to race a classic car, you'll lose. You'd really do that to Linda's son? I'd do it to anyone who stole from me and destroyed something irreplaceable. Linda stepped between us. Richard, I need to talk to you outside. We went into the hallway. She was shaking, whether from anger or fear, I couldn't tell. You're asking me to choose, she said, between you and my son. I'm asking you to let your son be an adult and face adult consequences. He made a mistake. Linda, stop. Please stop calling it a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It was a series of deliberate choices. He chose to take the keys. He chose to take the car. He chose to race. He chose to flee. Every single step was a choice. He's 29 years old. He's still learning. He's 29. At 29, I was an engineer at Ford. I was married. I had a mortgage. I had responsibilities. Your son has never faced a real consequence in his life because you've shielded him from every single one. Her eyes filled with tears. What kind of mother would I be if I didn't protect my child? A mother who prepares her child for the real world. A mother who sets boundaries. A mother who doesn't let her adult son steal cars and crash them because she's afraid to say no. I love him. I know you do. But love without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling. And it's turned him into someone who thinks he can take whatever he wants without consequences. I can't turn my back on him. I looked at this woman I'd cared for deeply. I could see it in her eyes. She'd already made her choice. I'm not asking you to turn your back on him, I said quietly. I'm asking you to stand beside me, to acknowledge that what he did was wrong, to support consequences. But you can't do that, can you? She didn't answer. I'm going to file a formal complaint with the police, I said. I'm going to pursue civil restitution, and I'm going to make sure that Marcus understands that his actions matter. If you can't support that, then I think we both know this relationship can't continue. Richard, I loved you, Linda. I really did. But I can't be with someone who prioritizes protecting their adult child from consequences over doing what's right. I walked away before she could respond. Over the next week, things moved quickly. The insurance adjuster confirmed total loss. The police prosecutor moved forward with charges. Marcus hired a lawyer who immediately tried to negotiate a plea deal. Linda called me 17 times. I didn't answer. My daughter Jennifer came over when she heard what happened. She sat with me in the garage, looking at the empty bay where the Charger used to sit. Dad, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. I know, but that car meant everything to you. Grandpa's car. It was just a car, honey. Don't give me that. You spent 8 years restoring it. You cried when you finished it. I had. I'd cried, standing in this exact spot, looking at the completed restoration, wishing my father could have seen it. Maybe that was the problem, I said. I put too much of myself into an object. Objects can be destroyed. Memories can't. Jennifer hugged me. You're taking this surprisingly well. I'm 62 years old. I've lost a lot in my life. Your mother, my father, friends, jobs. A car is just the latest thing. You learn that what matters isn't what you own. It's what you pass on. That's very philosophical for a car guy. I've had time to think. Connor came by the following weekend. He'd heard about the Charger from his mother. Grandpa, I'm really sorry about your car. Thank you, Connor. Are you going to get another one? I'd been thinking about that. There was a 1,970 Plymouth Cuda for sale in British Columbia. Original 446 pack. Needs full restoration. It would be another 8-year project. You know what? I said. I think I'm done with full restorations. They take too long. I want to spend more time teaching you while I still can. His eyes lit up. Really? Really? How about we find a project car together? Something we can work on every weekend. Something that in a few years, when you turn 18, you can drive. That would be amazing. We spent the afternoon looking at listings online. Not expensive cars. Not perfect cars. Just solid projects that needed work. A 1,968 Mustang with a seized engine. A 1,971 Camaro with rust in the quarters. Cars that needed someone to care about them. The legal process dragged on for months. Marcus eventually pleaded guilty to dangerous driving and unauthorized use. The racing charge was dropped as part of the plea deal. He received 2 years probation and a court order to pay restitution of $180,000, payable at $1,000 per month. At that rate, he'd be paying until he was 44 years old. He got a job at a call center. Linda helped him with the first few payments. I heard through mutual friends that Linda and I were finished. She'd chosen to support Marcus fully, even moving him back into her condo when he couldn't afford rent anymore. I don't know if she ever understood why I couldn't accept that. Jennifer told me Linda got engaged to someone she met at her book club, someone with adult children who apparently understood boundaries. I hoped it worked out for her. Connor and I bought the 1,968 Mustang. We spent every Sunday in the garage, teaching him to rebuild the 289 engine, to replace the floor pans, to work metal, and appreciate craftsmanship. He complained sometimes about how slow the work was, how long it took to do things right. Grandpa, we've been working on this for 6 months and we haven't even started it yet. That's because we're doing it properly, I explained. Anyone can bolt parts together and call it done. We're building something that'll last. Something you'll be proud of when you're my age. Will it really take that long? Probably 3 years total. But Connor, the car isn't the point. The point is learning to respect the work. Learning that anything worth having takes time and effort. Learning that shortcuts always cost more in the end. He thought about that. Is that why you were so mad about your Charger? Not just because it was wrecked, but because someone took a shortcut with something you spent years building, right? Smart kid. Exactly that. We kept working. I taught him everything my father taught me. How to read a micrometer, how to gap spark plugs, how to adjust valves, how to respect the tools and the process. One Sunday, about a year after the Charger incident, Jennifer brought coffee and donuts to the garage. She watched Connor installing freeze plugs in the engine block, checking the measurements twice before tapping them home with a brass hammer. He's getting good, she said quietly. He's patient. That's more important than skill. He's learning from the best. I watched my grandson work. Careful, methodical, double-checking every step, not rushing, not taking shortcuts, understanding that the work itself was the reward. You know what I realized? I said to Jennifer. Marcus did me a favor. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Dad, he destroyed Grandpa's car. He destroyed an object. But he freed me from it. I was so focused on preserving that car, on keeping it perfect, that I was afraid to use it, afraid to let anyone touch it, afraid it might get damaged. And you know what? It got damaged anyway. All that fear, all that protection, didn't matter. That's a very zen approach to having your car totaled. I'm 63 now. I spent 8 years restoring a car that I barely drove because I was terrified of something happening to it, and something happened anyway. But this? I gestured to Connor, to the Mustang project, to the garage full of tools and parts. This is real. This is teaching Connor something that'll matter long after I'm gone. This is passing on what my father gave me. Not a car, knowledge, values. The understanding that some things are worth doing right, no matter how long it takes. Jennifer hugged me. Mom would be proud of you. Grandpa, too. I hope so. Connor looked up from the engine block. Grandpa, can you check my measurements? I want to make sure these freeze plugs are seated correctly before we move on. Absolutely. Let's take a look. I walked over to the workbench, put on my reading glasses, and examined his work. Perfect depth, perfect alignment, exactly as I'd taught him. Outstanding work, Connor. That's exactly right. He grinned with pride. That night, after everyone left and I was locking up the garage, I stood in the empty climate-controlled bay where the Charger used to live. I thought about my father, about the 8 years I spent restoring his dream, about all the careful work that ended up as scrap metal in a salvage yard. And I thought about Connor, learning the same lessons my father taught me, learning patience, learning precision, learning that the shortcuts always cost more than doing it right the first time. Marcus learned that too eventually. $180,000 is an expensive education, but maybe he needed it. Maybe we all do. That moment when reality catches up and teaches us that actions have consequences, that other people's time and work matter, that you can't just take what you want and post about it online and expect that to be enough. I thought about Linda sometimes, whether she ever recognized the pattern, whether she ever understood that protecting Marcus from consequences wasn't protecting him at all. It was preventing him from growing into someone capable of handling real life. But that wasn't my problem to solve anymore. I had a Mustang to restore. I had a grandson to teach. I had a legacy to pass on that had nothing to do with cars and everything to do with understanding that some things, integrity, responsibility, craftsmanship, patience, matter more than objects ever could. I locked the garage door and walked toward the house, where tomorrow I'd start planning next weekend's work with Connor. We'd rebuild the Mustang's transmission together. It would take months. It would be difficult. It would be worth it, because you can't build anything solid on a foundation of shortcuts and stolen time. And that's a lesson worth more than any car, no matter how rare, no matter how valuable, no matter how perfect. It took me 63 years and $180,000 to fully understand that, but I understood it now.